and welcome to another episode of Exploring Standards. I am Jess, the host, and today I'm here with Director of Assent Risk Management, Robert Clements, and Director of AvISO, Paul Stevens. How are you both?
Very well, thank you.
Yeah, good. Thanks, Jess.
Good, fantastic. So our episode today, the topic of our episode today is the future of ISO. So I'm going to get straight in there and ask you the first question, which is, how can consultants work together?
Okay, from my point of view, I think as consultants, there's a huge value in us working together. We've got combined a huge pool of resources, knowledge, and experience. And I've always said I'd much rather get 60% of something than 100% of nothing. So I think, as a business strategy, it works very, very well. It allows us to be more flexible, more dynamic, have the right resources available when we need them, and to offer to our clients that additional knowledge and experience that comes with through collaboration. I think it's a fantastic thing. I think we should do what we can to actively encourage it.
Yeah, no, I definitely agree with that. I think you can't be an expert on everything, can you? And I know we're going to talk about the future of the industry a bit later on, but I think that's the real change, is that there's much more focus on the expertise and the quality of what you're delivering nowadays. That's where working with other consultants is really good, because you can access expertise that you might not have, and it might not be viable for you to develop that in-house, because you might just get one inquiry a year. But at least if you've got other consultants that you know and trust, you can still deliver for the client and give them a good service. It's quite a healthy industry as well. So it's not, there's plenty of work out there. We're not all fighting for the same jobs.
And there is plenty of work, and some of that work is becoming more complex, multiple standards, multiple locations, different wider scopes of work. So you need that ability to pull together different teams, the appropriate teams for the appropriate job. So the opportunity and the potential work out there only increases if we collaborate. If we don't, we limit ourselves to jobs that only the smaller jobs that we can do in-house, potentially. Brilliant.
Thank you very much. Thank you so much for taking the time to talk to me today about the future of ISO. I hope you've enjoyed talking. It isn't, you're not competing against each other. We're all working together for the same sort of cause. That's brilliant. So what can we do then to improve the industry, or what are we doing to improve the industry?
Yeah, sure. Well, I mean, Paul from AvISO and us at Assent have been talking for quite some time about what we could do about this, because the industry is far and wide, and it ranges from sort of one man or one person bands and people that have retired or gone a separate way, and obviously what they deliver is quite different from what a consultancy firm with a number of consultants might deliver, and there's definitely a place for that, but it is a different option for clients. And the quality of what people deliver across the spectrum is quite different. If we go back to the old black and white days, things were very different. It was very much orientated around quality and the quality standards. And, quite often you'd have very templated policies and very templated documentation. Sometimes consultants wouldn't provide that documentation to their client. They'd give them a copy of it, but not the actual original source. So it's very much controlled, and that's something that we don't tend to do today as consultants. We might give much more ownership of the process to the client. So those little things that are coming through in the modern consultancy industry is what we would really like to promote. Paul and I work together a lot, but we'd like to bring other consultancies in, which is what we're trying to do through a scheme called UKConsulting, which I'll let Paul pick up on rather than me talking all the time.
Brilliant, thanks, Rob. So no, I think to follow on from what Rob's saying there, very much is there's organisations of all different shapes and sizes operating in this industry. So from sole traders, but we're seeing much larger organisations coming in to offer services around ISO standards outside of just the certification side of it. And what I think people don't necessarily always realise is that consultancies aren't governed, controlled. So the certification bodies are audited, controlled by we don't have that in place for us. So anyone can get up tomorrow and call themselves a consultant. And there are some fantastic ones out there, and there's not very good, and there's everything in between. What we're looking to do is help the consultancies that want to improve, including us, so everyone, to work to really high standards, to have something to show for that, and to be able to evidence that to potential clients. I think that's really important, that we've all got a way of showing to clients that this is the quality of work, the quality of standards you can expect from when working with these types of businesses, and that can only help pull the whole industry up, where people get more value from the certificates they obtain, they get more value from the process, they're more likely to go for more certificates, they're more likely to continue to engage with the ones they've got. So I think it's, again, improving standards across the industry. Anything that can be done to do that is only going to improve the industry as a whole and the public perception of ISO standards, which varies based on the work that people have done with them. I think UK Consulting has a real opportunity to support with that.
Yeah, absolutely. So we've started to meet with some other consultants. I think you made a point there, Paul, about that we want to improve as well as improving the industry. So we're not sort of saying that we're perfect and we're the model that everyone should follow. We're really interested in learning about the new things that are out there, and any improvements that we can make. And a lot of that comes from talking to other consultants, right? So we've started to hold some regular meetups, which at the moment is on Teams. So obviously Paul and myself are there, but some of the other consultancy firms are joining those meetings, and we're getting some really good feedback and good knowledge out of those meetings for this UK consulting sort of scheme. And there's some other things that we can do as well. So we've, as you know, Jess, because you've worked really hard on it, we're looking at industry awards, because once we know what that good practice is, we want to promote that out to the industry. So an award system is one way of doing that. We've also worked in the past to publish some of our anonymous non-conformance data, so we can see where clients might be falling down a little bit, or which areas are weaker in the standards. And by pulling all of our data together, we get a much better idea of what's going on out there. And sometimes you can really see, can't you, Paul, where there might have been a UCAS guidance, or some area that they're focusing on, and suddenly you're getting a lot of non-conformities in those clauses.
Very much so. We've just seen clearly something's been raised by UKAS around risk management methodology in 27, and we just see a sudden change in outcomes from auditors who we have a lot of experience working with, certification bodies, and then we can pick up and we can learn from that. We can say, okay, that the actual expectation, the clause hasn't changed, but the expectation around that has changed. How can we address that issue for all of our clients, not just the individuals? And then the other thing to add, I think, is, Rob, you touched on the fact that historically consultants would provide some generic locked up templates that met the clause of the standard. I think the essence of that is consultancy is about getting someone else in to do the job for you, the job that you don't perhaps have the technical experience with. We having to move from that more to a knowledge transfer position. We need to ensure and enable our clients to go through the audits, to have ownership of their management system, not just the IP, but the processes and procedures described within it. Auditors no longer just want to see some generic templates. They want to know that the person they are auditing understands those and understands the logic and the thinking behind them. So as consultants, we can't just come in and go, boom, here's your system, present that. It's a knowledge transfer, it's an education piece, it's a sharing experience where the client is left with the ownership, the IP, to continue to manage that going forward. I think that is a definite change. I'm sort of jumping ahead of myself a little bit, that I've seen in the industry over time.
No, that's great. Because as I was going to say, my next question was sort of like, how has ISO changed, since you guys have entered the industry? Obviously, Paul, you've just done a really good sort of description of how you think it's changed, but Rob, you've got anything to add to that?
Well, I can always add something, Jess, you know that.
Try and stop him.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's all absolutely a fair point. I think it is much harder now to get a system certified that is purely a template consultant-driven system. I completely echo that knowledge transfer principle that Paul promotes as well. I I think in terms of the industry, if you take the wider view, as I said earlier, it very much started as a quality management industry, right? Because the first standards that were really adopted and really certified in this world were quality management standards. And actually, if you go right back, a lot of that was around manufacturing rather than the service industry. But when we look today at the breadth of standards that are out there, quality is obviously still there and obviously a keystone of it, but much, much smaller in the scheme of things. You know, we have information security, which is a huge area and a huge standard that people adopt, and many others, health and safety, environmental, sustainability, really any challenge that the world is facing, there's going to be a standard that backs that up. And with the standard comes the whole host of supporting frameworks like certification. And that's where I think it's much harder these days to be a one-stop shop in one firm to cover all of these things properly. I mean, people try it, but it's very difficult to do it effectively. And that brings us right the way back to the need to collaborate.
Completely agree with what you said there. It was just 9001 at quality. That's grown. I think something else on that front is it was originally about documented processes and procedures. So in order to could sit there, and as long as you've written everything down, you were in a good position. Although some might disagree, but that's very much what we've seen. So we've gone from the days of lever arch folders, big management systems, in order to sit there and reading everything, moved right the way through to use of software and technologies. But fundamentally, what that means is that there's less focus on the written procedure and more focus on the evidence to back it up. So it's all well and good saying we will do this, we will do that. It's much more evidence now. Show me the evidence. So controls-based, risk-based management systems. What are your risks? What do you use to mitigate those risks? What controls? And having evidence to back that up, rather than sometimes long and a little dry procedures that may say all the right things. Got to have the evidence, and that's a really positive, I feel, change, which means management systems themselves can be more lean, effective, efficient, and they help as well engage a wider team. So, sorry, but you traditionally might have a quality manager, and because there's someone with that title, they're given all the responsibility around quality. Now you're looking to engage a wider group of people, departments across an organisation, who are expected to show their input, their controls to mitigate the identified risks. There is a move towards risk-based, control-based management systems, which better engage a wider group of people across an organisation and help show the system's truly embedded, rather than some documented procedures which might just be dusted off for the audit.
Yeah, certainly. Well, I definitely think it's going in the right direction with those changes. You know, the peeling back some of the documentation requirements to make sure it's actually really necessary, and that's really good. The risk-based approach, I think, has been great for management systems because it allows you to apply it to all different types of businesses. I think what would really benefit us more going forward is more transparency and more clarity. And going back a little bit to what we were talking about with UKAS and when they might start to focus in on an area, it would be really good to share that information, because actually it's not about policing and catching people out. Surely the end goal is that we all have a better management system and a stronger management system. And if we know what those kind of focuses and issues are, then we can build those into our systems and make sure our clients have those in their systems, which obviously improves it. And that's the bit that's maybe still missing a little bit, and one area that we can play a small part in to work together and to collaborate to kind of hear about this stuff and share that information.
I think, to follow from that, there's perhaps a part to play by UKAS and by the certification bodies that, yes, we have to, and the impartiality is fundamental to what we do. But there is, I think, an opportunity to better define the relationships between the consultancies, the certification bodies, and UKAS, what we can share, what we can't, how best to share, so we're all taking the industry forward, but still maintaining that impartiality. And I think sometimes the pendulum swings too far one way or the other, and we end up actually potentially damaging the industry through wanting to, hold that impartiality, where actually we can maintain that impartiality but still share information to help us all, enable us all to improve the service we provide to our clients.
Fantastic. So I know maybe we have just sort of briefly touched on that, and we've been looking at sort of how ISO has changed in the last 5 years and kind of what you guys would like to see. But what do you think we can expect from ISO in the future?
What we can expect and what I'd like probably varies slightly. I would like to see a continuation of the risk-based approach, evidence-based, easier integration of technology to evidence compliance. So do we need long policies and procedures if controls are automated, for example? So yeah, I think continuation of the integration, or the ability to integrate standards. So, we're seeing this culture of compliance where companies will start maybe with 1 or 2 certificates and build that up. We have clients with 6 or 7 different certificates. The easier to integrate those, the better. I'd like to see that.
I think that they're moving in that direction with the common framework that's been around for a while. And I know that they're doing a lot of work at the moment on the brand of the 9001, because that's, perhaps some would argue, has lost its way a little bit. So I'd expect to see that changing a little bit, the quality management side in the future.
Environmental, I'd love to see more focus on aligning aspects with risks. So we combine our aspects and risk register 14,001, but at the minute it's more challenging to do. The standard could be certainly better aligned with the other standards, so we could look at environmental risks. Obviously, we still need to consider impacts and significant impacts, but I think there's a real opportunity there, and that's something which would go a long way to increasing the ability to integrate these standards and just ensure people got the most value from them.
Yeah, I mean, there's some excellent industry-specific standards coming out now through the various working groups at ISO, which is great, but I think eventually there'll be divergence away from the core standards with those, and that will need bringing back in. So things like you say there, Paul, with the alignment aspects to risks. I think there could be some similar things where some of these specialist standards have created devices that actually could be brought back into the risk management framework. So that'd be interesting to see. But I mean, we like to keep on top of these things, and we like a challenge. I know Paul does as well. So
let's try and stay ahead of the game. But I'm looking forward to seeing it continue to evolve, and that's, I think, the most important thing is that it does evolve. It doesn't stay still, because if it's staying still, it's slowly but surely becoming out of date and less relevant to people. So I think change is needed. We should push forward with them. We won't all get everything right every time, but the most important thing is we continue to try and push and develop in line with ever-changing workplace environments.
Brilliant. Thank you very much.
Well, just one thing I was just going to add, if there's any consultants or any consultancy firms out there that sort of like what we've spoken about today and would like to be involved in improving the industry, the UK Consulting website is up. So it's UKConsulting.org. So that's where these initiatives and these meetings are being kept. And we are trying to arrange regular meetups with Paul, myself, and several other consultants. So if you are interested in that, then please let us know. We've got a LinkedIn page and a LinkedIn group as well, so you can find us on LinkedIn. But yeah, we'd love to have more people involved in building this kind of group of consultants that can represent the interests of consultants. Like Paul said at the start, there's no regulation, there's no accreditation, there's nothing that kind of regulates consultants. And although we don't see it as something that regulates consultants, it's going to be a body that represents the interests in the industry and tries to engage with stakeholders, like hopefully people like UKAS, cert bodies, others out there. So please get in touch.
I'll pop a link in the show descriptions to both the LinkedIn page and the UK Consulting webpage as well for anyone who wants to find more information. Thank you so much for taking the time to talk to me today about the future of ISO. I hope you've enjoyed talking. I think it's been very,
Too
very
much.
not too painful. It's been very insightful. If you have enjoyed listening to today's episode, please make sure to subscribe and give us a review and like, and watch out for the next episode.